Hello, everybody. Welcome to Coffee with Tamara. It's that time. It's Wednesday, and I am here with what I think is going to be a pretty exciting podcast. I'm excited to dig into it, and that's Influence Unpacked. So, welcome. Good to see you all back. Hey, if you are listening to this or watching on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, in our private group where we post it, remember that you can ask questions. I'm a big believer in collective wisdom. So if you've got a question, ask it. If you're thinking it, somebody else is probably thinking it, and it's going to help everybody. If you've got an aha, put it in there, because if you've got that aha, it could help somebody else or help them think even a little bit differently about what's at hand or what they're thinking about. So today we're talking about influence. So why are we talking about influence, and what does that have to do with being an everyday innovator with strong analytical and creative problem solving and leadership skills? Well, a couple things. First of all, how you lead and influence others is as important as the other side of the coin, which is how you create a problem solve, analytical thinking, strategic foresight. You need both sides of the coin. Now, the beauty is what we've discovered in our research is that your everyday innovator archetype holds the key to how you influence in a very authentic and real way, in a way that gets you results. So that's part of it. But there's a whole second part of it, which is I don't want to call them tips and tricks, hacks, whatever you want to call them, but things that I've learned along the way that have helped me dial up my influence. And I'm not talking about influence like you have to be the super charismatic, um, you know, Jordan Belfort, from Wall Street kind of person all the time, or like some of the leaders we see on TV. That's all great, but that's not the only way to influence. Like I said, how you influence is a thing that you do your way, but there's some very real and tangible tools that will help you with it as well. So we're going to cover a little bit of that today. And I guess the other question I always get is, well, why, Tamara? Why do I care about that? Shouldn't the product that I create or the idea that I have or my work or whatever it is stand on its own? Shouldn't that be my influence? All right, well, maybe in the ideal world, but I think that we both know that's not how it works. You need to exert influence skills so that people see it. How many times have we seen the best idea be the one that actually dies? Why? Because it doesn't matter. Nobody noticed it. There was no influence behind it. So today we're going to unpack influence. And I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me look. I took notes here because I wanted to be in depth. 6, 7. I have 7 tools or things for you to think about that you can do immediately to dial up your influence so that you can get recognized for your ideas, so that you can get buy-in for your ideas. Look, the reality is that none of us can do it alone. And I don't know that that's a bad thing. That's just human, right? That's reality. We need, the people in our company to get stuff done. We need our customers to buy. We need our spouses and our kids to say yes to things. I have a very funny story about my kiddo and one of the tools I'm going to share with you today, because it just happened. Like, the timing could not have been more perfect. So we need other people to move things forward and to get things done. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen without other people. So let's just remember that for a second, right? We can't all do it alone. Hey, welcome. Look, we've got some people joining. I'm super excited to see you here. I just want to remind all of you that if you've got the questions, ask it. On my platform, it pulls it all together so I can see all the questions. All right, let's dig into influence. What do you think? How many of you look at your work, your results, the impact that you've been able to make and think, I probably could use some more influence. Maybe I'm okay. Maybe I'm great. But if I had a little bit more, right, it would be even better. Probably a lot of you. I know it's true for me. So let me just tell you what these 7 tools are. Some of them are based on your archetype and your personality, so they're very authentic to you and the archetypes around you. And some of them are kind of everyday tools that we can all use. Okay, ready? You've got your notepad out. Awesome. All right. One is reciprocity. That's a Cialdini rule. I want to dig into that one because I think it's a really important one. The second one is being in their shoes, i.e., what's in it for them. Number 3 is the power of the pause. Number 4 is know your influence. That's based on your everyday innovator archetype. Number 5 is speak their language. And then number 6 is know their motivators. And motivators are really important. We often forget about that when it comes to influence. And then number 7 is anchor in time and space. And I'll explain what that means. It's a really important one. Okay, so let's go over the 7. All right. And again, my goal in this is to give you the tools that you can use instantly to gain more influence. And I think these 7 are really going to do that for you. Okay, number 1, reciprocity. Now, this is a Cialdini rule. So if you've ever seen or read his book of influence, it's absolutely incredible. And there's 7 in there. They're all really important. But I want to focus on this one because this is something that we can really do something about right away and that we can really leverage. So that's reciprocity. The idea of reciprocity is if you give somebody something, they are more likely to give you something in return. It is why right before you get the check at a restaurant, that's when they give you the free slice of orange, the free mint, whatever it is. Fill up your water glasses a little more. Why? Because if they give you something, you're more likely to tip, right? To give a good tip. Makes perfect sense. It's human nature. I don't know if any of you are old enough like me to remember back in the days when you used to go to the airport and the Hare Krishnas would be there and they would give you a flower, right? And in return, what would you do? Right, you would donate. Reciprocity. Here's the key with reciprocity, according to Cialdini and his research, I think is important to remember. You need to be the first to give. It needs to be personalized and meaningful. And it needs to not come with an ask right away. Have you ever had that person who's like, hey, you want a bite of my bagel? Now can I have a bite of your food? Right? It's so obvious, right? In fact, it kind of sets you off. What we want to do is just open with reciprocity, something meaningful, something that someone would be like, oh, thanks for that. That could be anything from a compliment to coming to the meeting with donuts. I had a colleague who did that the other day who had to go to a very serious meeting. So he brought donuts to the meeting. And I thought, that was brilliant. That's reciprocity. He was doing it as a way to just lighten the load a little bit, like have a little fun, make some connection, also important. But at the same time, great reciprocity. So it needs to be, you need to be the first. It needs to be personalized and meaningful. And it needs to be without like an immediate ask that's even bigger on the back end. Where are ways that you can do that in your conversations, in life? And I think it's important to do it without knowing even sometimes what you expect or even want in return. I spend a lot of my time supporting and helping other people, and I do it very willingly, not because I have something specific that I'm looking for in return. I'm usually doing it because I think I can help that person in some way. But also what I found is when I need them, they're there for me because I've given something to them first. So reciprocity is key. So if you're going into a big presentation and you really need to get to a yes on this, maybe you come with some donuts. Maybe you have something that makes their lives or their work easier first. Reciprocity, be the first, personalized and meaningful, and do it without that immediate ask right after. Here's the other interesting thing about reciprocity that Cialdini doesn't talk about, but I'm just connecting the dots with something else that I learned about the lizard brain. So the lizard brain really opens up when things are scarce, I mean, you're afraid of missing out, when they're free, or when they're like sexy. So let's take sexy off the table for a second. In work and life, right? How many times when someone says free this, free that, free extra blah, 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 free Wi-Fi in the rooms, right? We're like more likely to buy from that person or to engage with that person. Free. Our lizard brain looks for free, it wants free stuff. And when you give it free stuff, it opens up. It also opens up to scarcity because it makes it concerned that it's going to be left out. Lizard brain does not like FOMO at all. So it's human nature. So here's the why I think this is actually, maybe even now that I say it out loud, the more important part of this whole discussion. The lizard brain is what keeps us in fight, flight, or freeze. So when you're trying to get a yes to your product, your idea, whatever it is you're trying to do, you're trying to get someone to say yes to going out to dinner, whatever, the lizard brain's looking for reasons to shut the idea down. It wants to keep you safe and comfortable, and it wants to keep you in fight, flight, or freeze, which is a stress response, which just shuts everything down. So what I found is that when I go into a meeting and I need to get people out of fight, flight, or freeze, which by the way, people are living in on a day-to-day basis now. It's not how it was intended to as a biological design. It's meant to be kind of like this immediate response that comes and goes, like, there's a tiger, run, right? But in the modern kind of rapidly changing times that we're in, it's a constant. So we need to get people out of fight, flight, or freeze when we are having a conversation with them. Reciprocity does that because the lizard brain gives you 2 thumbs up when something is free. Does that make sense? Are we tracking here? Okay, good. Free is good. Reciprocity is good. It's human nature. We want to connect with other people. We want to be engaged. We're tribal. Our whole design is tribal, right? That's why we live in communities. So we want that connection with other people. And reciprocity is absolutely 100% the way to do that. Okay. The second one is walk in their shoes. In other words, what's in it for them? So here's the huge mistake I used to make and really stopped me from getting buy-in for the things I was trying to get buy-in for. And I'll give you a quick story around this and then kind of show what I mean. So early on in my consulting career, I did a lot of new product development projects for big consumer goods companies. So Procter & Gamble, General Mills, Clorox, IBM. Oh my gosh, the list goes on. But I share that with you because my job was to go away and figure out what is a range of new products that this team, this brand should bring to market. And it usually started with a lot of great consumer research, kind of market research, and an idea of like, we're trying to capture this market or we're trying to fill this need. But my job was to create these products. So we'd go off and we'd do this incredible research and the client would be along all the way. And then at the very end, it was my job to present to my client and obviously a broader team about these ideas. Like, here were my suggestions to you. So there were a lot of mistakes that I made, especially early on. Like, first of all, going behind the black curtain and just being like, I'm going to do my work and then ta-da. You should always bring people along for the journey. You're more likely to get buy-in from people if they actually are part of the journey with you. So that's, by the way, that's like a little bonus lesson right there. That's number 8. Bring people along for the journey. It matters. But the other thing is I'd get up there and I'd have these, let's call it 7 products that I thought were game changing for them. And I would get up there and I would talk all about the product, right? What made the product, how it worked, what need it filled, why consumers loved it, how you could bring it to market, how you could sell it, where in the grocery store or Target it would go, fill in the blank. I said it all. So do you see the problem there? If you're on the other side of that, you would think that just simply seeing the brilliance of the product would be enough, but it's not. Why? Because what I didn't do, especially early on, is I didn't spend the time to go, what's in it for them? Well, what's in it for them? Okay, the chat bar is lighting up with other people's ideas. Helps them look good in the company, gets them promoted, gets them more sales. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. All of that. So had I stopped and repositioned the conversation to say, this is why this is good for your brand and for you, right? It helps you do this. It helps you get this. And that can be from a personal and professional level. It helps you get promoted. It helps you meet your objectives of a 10% increase in revenue. It helps the company look good. It helps you stave off competition. Had I started there, I think I would have gotten more buy-in early on, but I didn't. And I didn't because it's on me. I did not step into their shoes. So here it is. The human brain is very, very selfish. And it wants to know, well, what's in it for me? It is again, it's human design. We got to stop fighting the psychology of everything and just give into it. Human design. What is in it for me? Okay. My ego wants to know, and that's okay. So if you're going to ask somebody for something, if you're going to try to get buy-in for your ideas, if you're trying to get to yes, even your customer, excuse me, think about what's in it for them. I'm going to give you a great example because this is no joke, happened about 20 minutes ago. So to give you some context, my son did a diorama, when you turn a shoebox into a thing, and he spent hours and hours on it. It was for world history. He was really proud of it. And he finished very like midnight last night. And then he gets all mad because according to the instructions, you're not supposed to bring it to school. You're just supposed to take a picture of it and download it on a document. So both of us are like, well, that's stupid. Like, that's really lame. What is this teacher thinking? He spent all this effort on this 3D diorama thing, and he's got like little, those little army men in there. And it was about the Russian Revolution was what he had to do. So he's got this army in there. He put rock wool on it. Like, the thing is amazing. If you want, I'll put a picture somewhere because it's so good. And so he was so proud. But then he's mad. So he does what he has to do, what he thinks he has to do. He uploads the photos. He leaves it at home. Even though I said to him this morning, are you sure the teacher doesn't want it? Do you want to take it just in case? Like, we can always just toss it, but it feels like it's too good to just like do nothing with, right? He's like, no, she never responded. So I take him to the bus. Now his high school is about 30 to 45 minutes away from our house where we live. So he's got to trek to school. So I get a text. I think you know where this is going. That text comes in it was about 20 minutes ago. So it's 10 o'clock my day. Yeah, it was just before I went live. And it says, Ima. So Ima is Hebrew for mom. That's what he calls me. Ima. He said, can you drive the diorama down today? And I write back, excuse me? And he goes, okay, so here's the deal. It turns out we were supposed to turn it in. I didn't see the instructions at the bottom. They were supposed to do both. They were supposed to send in photos, but then also bring it into class. Now, as he's texting and sending me, I can feel my blood boiling because I had just said to him, honey, we're about to go on spring break vacation next week. I need this time to work. I have so much to accomplish. So I need you to know that like I am on work mode. There's going to be no watching Battlestar Galactica after dinner together. Like this is work week. So he knows that I'm feeling this week like every minute really matters. Excuse me. So he's texting me like, can you bring it down? As I'm about to respond, like, are you kidding me? You want me to spend an hour and a half in my day to drive down because you didn't read the instructions? Like, that's what's going on in my head. He texts, I'll make you a deal. If you drive down, I will make dinner tonight so you get that time back. So instead of we're going to make homemade pizza tonight, he said, so instead of making homemade pizza, I'll make it so that you can work while I'm cooking. Genius. First of all, reciprocity, he's giving me something. But second, he's putting himself in my shoes because he's saying, okay, I'm asking my mom to drive all this way down to drop off something because I made a mistake. And look, it happens, right? He's knowing this. I made a mistake, so I better think about, well, what does she want out of this? Okay, well, what I want out of this is I want some time back. So he's going to make dinner. I loved that. I thought that was so brilliant. So after he did that, because I just taken notes about what I finished up my notes about what I wanted to say, I was like, oh, masterful, Ari, masterful. So think about what's in it for them. How is it going to benefit them? Are they going to be able to say they accomplished something and it's like important on their resume? Are they going to be able to increase their bottom line? Are they going to be able to go to their boss and look good for that promotion? Are they as an organization is going to help them achieve a certain goal? One of the things that drives me crazy is I get a lot of outreach from companies that say, hey, are you hungry for sales? We can blah, 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 blah. But not one of them has said, all right, well, if I were Tamara and I were in her shoes and she's got this business and she probably wants to take it to the next level, we all do. What does she really want? Well, I'm guessing she probably wants to get unstuck, meaning whatever that ceiling is, she wants to remove it. So I'm waiting for that person to email me and say, hey, Tamara, I'm not sure exactly where you are, but you seem ambitious. So I'm sure you're going to trying to get to the next level from wherever you are. How about we have a conversation about how we can remove some of those ceilings or those roadblocks that might be in your way? Watch, I'm going to get 10 emails like that now. But seriously, what's in it for me? Like, what's in it for you? What's in it for the people on the other side of the table? That's actually what matters. Okay. And by the way, well played, Ari. Well played. All right. Number 3 is one that definitely doesn't get talked about enough and that I learned through my market research days. So as I mentioned, I used to do a ton of market research, new product development. So I spent a lot of time doing focus groups and ethnographies. So focus groups, when you get a group of people into a room and you share something with them or you get their feedback. And then ethnographies, which actually were my absolute favorite, is when we'd go into people's homes or we'd ride to work with them or we would go to their work with them. It was absolutely fascinating. Fascinating. So you kind of do a day in the life with someone. Like one time we were trying to make cereal portable. The people were on the move. Nobody was sitting down for breakfast. It was a project for General Mills. So we did people's morning routines with them. Some of them were in the home. Some of them were in a car for 2 hours commuting. Oh my God. It's like my favorite thing to do. It was fascinating. So, but here's what I learned. I learned as the moderator, the facilitator, the person asking the questions, that it's very easy for me to talk. But if I just shut up and paused, and I don't mean pause in my sentence, I mean ask my question and then full stop, let silence take over, that the people on the other side would fill that air. Think about it for a minute. All right, how awkward did that feel? That was a few seconds, right? As humans, we don't like silence. We don't like that uncomfortableness that comes with just nothing. So we fill the air. So if we want to get buy-in, if we want to be influential, one of the things that I've discovered is that power of the pause that I learned in market research absolutely applies to getting buy-in for my ideas, especially if that person has an objection. So if I say, let me pick someone who's on here. Hey, Stephen, I really want to pursue this new product idea. In fact, here, I really want to launch this new water bottle into the marketplace. I feel like the market would really like it. What are your thoughts on this? That's probably not how I'd position it, but just for role playing. Then Stephen might be like, well, I don't know. There's a lot of, you're drinking a Stanley already. Like there's a lot of water bottles out there. It's kind of cluttered. My human inclination is to be like, yeah, but none of them have this or have that, or do what we're trying to say here, or there's new room, or there's a new market that's untapped, right? Like I want to solve it for him. But instead, if I just pause and shut up, here's what typically happens. Stephen then goes, there's a lot of water bottles in the marketplace. There's a lot out there. You already have a Stanley. But maybe there's some new markets. Like they start to talk themselves into the yes before you having to do it. And once they start talking themselves into the yes, then you can go in with well, we haven't tapped this market. Nobody's touched this market yet, or nobody has this benefit and it's really unmet. You can start to launch in. Because we don't pause, we try to solve too soon. And when we do that, the person on the other side of the table, the person we need buy-in from, simply doesn't have a chance to catch up. That's it. So pause, let other people talk themselves into the yes. Give them a chance to think about it. One of the most valuable things I learned for keynoting, I do a lot of keynoting, is that it's not just about what I say on stage. It's about giving them a moment to process it too. So oftentimes I'll take, I'll share my insight and then I'll do an exercise, right? And that exercise is intended for them to internalize it, but also to process it. And then I'll kind of close it out, but there'll be like a moment, like a completion before I move on to the next one. So the power of the pause is so important. Let them fill the air. You filling the air is like you pushing your brilliance on them. It's like you trying to shove it, convince it, right? It doesn't work. We've all been there. Pause. Let them catch up. Let them talk themselves into the yes. All right, so the question in from Allie is, what happens if they talk themselves into more objections? Okay, so that's great, Allie, when that happens. And the reason for that is then you know what they really care about. Here's the reality. The first objection they give you is only on the surface and probably not even the real one. There's 10 layers deep, and that's actually the objection that really matters. So if they talk themselves into more and more and more and more objections, then you start to uncover what you really need to be addressing. Because if you try to solve that objection on the top, you're not going to get anywhere. They're still stuck because you haven't really solved their real objection. But if you give them a chance to get to that deeper conversation, that deeper issue, that whatever it is that's like down there that's causing all these other objections, then you can have a conversation about what really matters. So Let them talk themselves into more objections. And oh, by the way, sometimes they just talk themselves into exhaustion and stop finding it. It's a little bit like kids. You know how, like with your kids, when you're like, go brush your teeth, and they're like, no, I don't want to, right? And I found that if I battled back with them when my kids were little, it would just be a battle. But if I let them just get it all out, 5 minutes later, they were in the bathroom brushing their teeth, right? So let people spiral. It's okay. Let's get to those real conversations, objections. Let's get to a little bit of exhaustion. None of those are a bad thing. Allie says, that's brilliant AF. Thank you, Allie. Use it and tell me what you think. But really, let them, because you're going to get to the deeper conversation. I'm more interested in having a real conversation about what really matters than staying on the surface, because real influence is about real conversations. Let me say that again, actually, because I think that's so important. Real influence is about real conversations. So if you're staying on the surface and having those conversations, you're not getting anywhere. But if you're letting people dig deeper and go further down to what really matters, then you can create influence because you can have a real conversation. Okay, that was number 3. Number 4 is know your influence. So this is based 100% on your everyday innovator archetype. And it matters so much because we all have a different way of influencing. And part of the reason that we lose our ability to influence and get buy-in is because we're trying to do it like somebody else. So if somebody tries to influence like me, who's not like me, right? They're going to fail. If I try to influence like Elaine, I'm going to fail. So we need to influence in a way that actually works for us. And we all have something innate to us that actually helps us be that influencer we're meant to be. So let me give you an example, okay? I am a pioneer. That's my archetype. That means that my 2 power triggers in my everyday innovator style are experiential and risk-taking. And when you put those 2 together, you get this magical combination of pioneering, audacious, bold, tangible, real, right? That's how I go through the world at my best. So when you go through the world at your most authentic best, people are drawn to you. They're drawn by your authenticity. They're drawn by your confidence. Sorry, guys, I'm like tail end of a cold. So they're drawn by your authenticity. They're drawn by your confidence. They're drawn by you being you and kind of exerting that light into the world. So when I am acting as myself, I get influence. I get buy-in because they're drawn to it. Now, if I try to be like somebody else, it's not going to work. So one of the things when people take our assessment is they discover their influencer style, right? That's how they lead others. So like, as I was saying, I lead others by being audacious and bold and by being action-oriented and driven, right? And because of that, I tend to pave the way for others. And I tend to make things real, like understandable, like people can touch and feel and see the ideas that I'm thinking of. That's me. Now, Anthony, who's one of our elite advisors, he's a licensed advisor, he is a catalyst, which is a combination of collaborative and tweaker. So his style of influence is very different than my style of influence. So his, because of being a collaborative and tweaker, he is magnetic and inclusive. He is focused and dynamic. So he brings people together and pulls in. He's really natural building teams and getting buy-in. And the tweaker side of him, he's really good at optimizing and getting people unstuck and making small adjustments that make a big difference and make people go, oh, I see it now. Do you see the difference there? 2 totally different type of people. Now, if you've got, I'll give you one more. If you are the different type of archetype that has, let me see, which one do I want to pull on? Let's do inquisitive and instinctual, because those are very different. So if you're inquisitive and instinctual, right, that magical combination makes you intense and curious, insightful and swift. So you're able to dig deeper, challenge assumptions, and get people to break old thinking patterns. And you're able to make sense of situations. That's the insightful and swift. You see how things come together. You pull out the patterns for people. So if you're trying to influence me and you're like pulling out the patterns and you are digging deeper and challenging assumptions, I'm like, yes, whatever it is that you're putting down, I'm picking up, right? So it's really important that we know our influencer style so that we know how to bring it out into the world. Because again, when we do that, people are drawn to us because we are our most authentic, confident, best self. And there's this old phrase, I think it goes, he with the most confidence wins. And I think that's true, but I think it's not confidence like bravado. I think it's true when you are your best self, when you embody your unique everyday innovator archetype, you know how to naturally influence others. You just have to step into it a little bit more. So be you, know your style and be you. One of the reports that we've gotten from people who have done the mastery certification. So it's a 7-module course and you get this great certification at the end that shows your worth and your value. You can put it on LinkedIn. You can show it to your boss. You can like wear it as a badge of honor, but it's a way to kind of articulate your value into the world, especially right now where things are so cluttered and crazy, but also it sharpens these skills that we're talking about. And one of the things they've said is this helped me get more yeses. It's helped me get noticed in the boardroom. It's helped me get to that job interview faster. Why? Because your influencer style is unleashed, and that's really important. Okay, let me take a circle that. I have a note for myself for later. All right, so the 5th one is speak their language. As I keep alluding to, and I think you know if you're in the community already, we all have different archetypes. So there's 256 combinations. When you combine the top 2 power triggers, your wellspring of innovation, right? The wind that pushes you forward, with your dormant trigger, which is the place that exhausts you to play the most. So there's 256 different combinations. So no 2 brain is the same. It's unique like your thumbprint. The archetypes are very different. So what you bring to the table that draws me to you is different than me. So I need you to be your best self, and I need you to speak to me in a way that really works for me. So I'm going to pull out, this is, I don't know if you can really see that. It's so bright in here. It's a 1-pager and it tells you, as someone said, this is like a coach's love language chart. That's what someone told me this was. But on here, one of the things you notice is language used. So I, as a risk taker and experiential, as the pioneer, I use language like bold, daring, impact. I speak in a very declarative tone. I use language like, let's see what happens, test it, real world. Like, don't use words like in theory and hypothetically with me, because it'll shut me down, because I'm all about that experiential side. But if you know that about me and you're going to present an idea to me and you want my buy-in, you know how to speak a language that really resonates with me. A while back, I had my team go and come up with a bunch of different revenue streams, new services we could provide our clients. We find that they love the thing that we did, but then we drop off because we didn't have something later to sell to them, to engage with them, right? To offer them. So we said, okay, well, what can we do next that's in our zone of genius, but also something of value to them? So I had my team go off and do a bunch of research and come back with a couple ideas. I'll never forget, and this was before I understood all this, so I didn't know why until looking back. In the first meeting, the team said, well, we have these ideas, and this other company is doing this, so it's proven over here. This other company is doing that, so it's proven over there. And in theory, it should do this. And hypothetically speaking, it got nowhere with me, nowhere. Because I was like, I don't like any of this, because none of this was bold and disruptive and game-changing and real world. So they went away for 2 weeks. They came back, and I don't know if they did this intentionally or if this was just haphazard and it worked, but this time they were like, we've got some really bold ideas. They're going to disrupt the category, but they're going to be super meaningful to clients. We've done a little experimentation. We've actually done some research and we've tested it out with clients just by having conversations. And here's what they've said. And I was like, yes, how much money do you need? Speak their language. So know how you naturally, what your influencer style is authentically, and then speak their language. So important. So I gave them the yes. But do you see what they did there? All they did was speak my language. So know the language of the people around you. I'll give you one other example on that. Or actually, I'll give you that example in the next one because they're kind of tied together. So the next one is know their motivators. So there's different archetypes. We're motivated by different things. So I am motivated by new opportunities and I'm motivated by building something, right? I really love new opportunities, new paths, building it, bringing it to life. Like that gets me really excited. So Laura, who used to work for me, she's the catalyst. She's collaborative and tweaker, like we were talking about earlier. And she is motivated by building connections and problem solving. Very different. So I'm going to give you this example because it was crazy. It was so funny when I did this and I realized my own mistake. So we needed a new, not a CRM system, but a new business dashboard. We were flooded with new business calls and inquiries, and I needed to see like, and how long I needed to know for cash flow, how long things were taking to get to close and where we were with stuff. It was like an Excel spreadsheet hot mess. And we had a CRM system, we had a list, but it wasn't quite right. So in our Monday meeting, I was like, oh my gosh, we need something totally different. We need to reinvent this system. We need to like change it up, and we need to like, put some Excel spreadsheets together and see what we got. So I gave her the project. Now she was great at her job. Don't get me wrong. She moved on to do other great things. So she was great. This isn't about her. It's about me. And I'm like, yeah, okay, Laura, you're on it. And then a week later came back and we didn't really have much. And she's like, well, I'm not sure where to start. I'm not blah, 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 which by the way, with tweakers, people who have that in their power triggers, they're really good at optimizing what already exists versus starting from scratch. So know where they place too. So I'm listening to her. I'm like, all right, I need to do this differently. So the next week I come to her and I say, Laura, let's talk about this system. I was thinking about it. I think what we can do is take what we have, but evolve it. And I think we can make it even better. And you're probably going to need to connect with Josh and with Corey and with these other people that we work with to see like their inputs and how they want to put in. So you'll have to kind of work with them as a team a little bit. And I'm stuck. I'm just not sure what to do here. Well, what did I speak to in that? I spoke to her desire, her motivator of building connections and problem solving. I'm stuck. Help me solve a problem. And I meant it, by the way, I was stuck. And building connections, work with these other people, pull these pieces in. So know the motivators of the people around you. People who have futuristic in their archetype are really motivated by future plans. So it's not about what happened yesterday for them. It's not about what happened today. It's about what's possible tomorrow for them. So think about that. For instinctuals, if you have that in your power triggers, you are motivated by feeling connected, right? Like connected to the thing. So that's why they kind of touch, feel, experience, because they want to feel a deep connection to what they're working on. So for them, a motivator is purpose, right? So know their purpose. So know your style and know how to communicate in a way that opens up the person on the other side of the table. So that was number 6. Number 7 is a pet peeve that I want to share because it's so important. You ready for it? Okay. I know I have so many pet peeves. That's because I want us all to be better, do better. Anchor in time and space. Here's what I mean by this. Okay. There's nothing, I'm trying to show you how to say this. There are a lot of things that frustrate me more. One of the things that really, really frustrates me is when people come to me with an idea, they want something they want me to say yes to, but there's no next step. There's no time frame. Like, what do you want from me? If I give you the yes, what even happens next? And we do that a lot particularly in work. And I don't think we mean to, I don't think it's intentional, but we go to people asking for a yes without anchoring it in anything specific or any time frame. So what are we doing? We're putting the work on the person we want the yes from. We're putting the work on the other person. When we do that, they're more inclined to say no. So when we're trying to get a yes to something, we need to anchor it in time and space. So I am looking for $10,000 to test out this product. I'm looking for the green light so that I can experiment, so that I can pull the resources. I am looking for approval to pull together a cross-functional team so that we can blah, 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 right? Do you see my point? Anchor in time and space. Do not put that work on the person on the other side of the table. It is not fair, and you're not going to get to a yes. Things need to be anchored. I need an answer by Wednesday so that I can either do this or do that. It's not that hard. And you know what? The person on the other side of the table will be thankful. They'll be thankful that you spent the time to go, here's exactly what I need. And in doing that, you're giving them something to say yes to. Oftentimes we don't give people something to say yes to because we're not clear in anchoring in time and space. Anchor, anchor, anchor. Okay. It's a little bit of my pet peeve, if you can tell, but it's really important that you do that. So think about if you do this. All right. Paul says, oops, I'm clearly missing this. Great advice. You're welcome, Paul. Yeah. Anchor it. Time and space. We miss it. And then we wonder why they said no. Well, we didn't really give them anything to say yes to, anything specific. We put work on them to figure out the next steps. That is not fair. and you're not going to get a yes. Whew. Okay. So let's see. What did we cover? Reciprocity, right? Be the first to give, make it personalized and meaningful. Get in their shoes. Be like my son Ari and be like, hey, this is how it benefits you. Power of the pause. Let them talk themselves into the yes or out of the no, right? They can talk themselves out of the no too. Number 3, that was number 3. Number 4, know your influencer style. Are you pioneering and are you audacious and bold, or are you intense and curious? Are you, if you're imaginative as part of your archetype, you're inventive and fresh, right? That's a different influencer style than mine. I think you can hear it. Yeah. Carrie says he can hear it in how I even talk in podcasts. Yeah, exactly. Right. This is who I am at my best. If I was trying to be, let me pick a different one that's totally different than me. Okay. So inquisitive is very different. If I was trying to be like intense, curious, we're all curious, but it's a different kind of influencer style. But if I was trying to be that and imaginative, inventive, and fresh, I'd fail because that's not my influencer style. It's not that I can't appreciate, do those things, but that's not how I influence. And it's not how you influence. All right. So speak their language, know the words that they use, right? When you're talking to someone with experiential, if you use hypothetical, in theory, we think that, it tends to shut them down. But if you use words like rubber meets the road, test it out, experiment, they're like, yeah, I don't know why, but I'm all in. So speak their language. 6, know their motivators. Are they driven by building connections? Are they driven by feeling connected? Are they driven by future plans, building something, problem solving? That can make a big difference. Understanding people's motivators is really important. And the key to that is remembering that what motivates you is not what motivates someone else. So you might be thinking, I am so motivated by this. Like if you came to me in that story I gave you with Laura, if you came to me and said, Tamara, we have uncharted territory, I'd be like, count me in. You don't even need to tell me what it is. Count me in. In fact, I'll tell you a really funny story from way back when. We were whitewater rafting, and it was the rapids were really intense, and or at least I felt that way. Maybe the instructor was like, "This is nothing, girl," but I felt that way. And at one point, it was a bunch of friends, and at one point, the guide said, "All right, I got something that we haven't done yet. Who wants to ride the bull through the horn?" I didn't even know what it was. My hand went flying up before you could possibly, like, you could finish the sentence. All I heard was, it's never been done before. And I was like, I want in. Now, if he said to me, we do this on every whitewater rafting trip, on this one, who wants to be the person that rides the bull through the horn? I'd be like, no, thank you. But because he said it's never been done before, oh, I was in faster than you could believe. Oh, you want to know what it, okay, Elaine asked, well, what is it? You sit on the very, very front of the raft. You hold on to the rope. And so you're basically on the very, very front. So you're bouncing up and down. And the goal is not to fall backwards into the boat. You have to it's like you're bull riding, right? Like you've got your rope and you're all over the place. And I think one hand was up in the air too. I was 100% in. It was so much fun. But I was in because he said, we haven't done this. And I was like, yes. Okay. 7, anchor in time and space. Give them something to say yes to. Be very clear. Be very specific. Okay, Lauren wants to know what happens if they say no. Great. Then the question back is, what would you rather say yes to? What would make this work for you? How would you change it? What would you do next? Let them tell you. But if you don't give them something, there's nothing for them to come back to. And Lauren, I'm going to guess in your question that there's a little bit of hesitation of what if I ask them for the wrong thing? What if they don't like the money, right, that I asked for? What if they don't like the product, whatever it is? If they say they don't like it, then you can find out what they do like. But you can't find that out if you don't actually anchor it in time and space and give them something to say yes or no to. All right, here's what I'm going to leave you with. I want you to think of influence as a little bit like a rubber band. You know how like you get a rubber band and it's really tight, and then you pull it and pull it and pull it. And then when you snap it back, it's looser than it was before. It's not going to be as wide as your full pull, but it's looser. Well, I think influence sometimes works a little bit that way. Sometimes we got to pull and ask, knowing that we may not get that full rubber band, but when it snaps back, it's still going to be looser than it was before. Hopefully that makes sense. Maybe a balloon's a better analogy. I don't know. But my point is sometimes you got to know that with influence, you got to go to the extreme to get a little bit of movement. You don't always get exactly what you want. I'm a big fan of asking for more than I want, knowing that I'll meet somewhere in the middle. And that's just a mindset thing that we got to get used to as people, as everyday innovators trying to make the influence. Just know sometimes you got to pull, knowing that you're going to end up in the middle somewhere. And that's okay. Be prepared for that and think that through. There have been times when I've asked for way more than I even wanted, knowing I wasn't going to get it. I was kind of thankful not to get it, to be honest, but knowing I wasn't going to get it so that I could get to the place I wanted. There's nothing wrong with just knowing that you got to stretch that rubber band to get what you want. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your questions. This will go live tomorrow on the podcast, or you're already listening to it on the podcast and you're like, what are you talking about? I'm here tomorrow. Either way, hey, go take the assessment, discover your unique everyday innovator archetype so that you can understand your influencer style, all these things. We have this incredible deep dive report, this infographic, and these emails custom to you that come up next with things like your influencer style. So great. So go take advantage of that. And when you're ready, if you're the type of person that really values sharpening those skills and putting your worth out into the marketplace, get the certification that can go with it. All right. Tamara out.